Hi, and welcome to Chapter 4, Environmental Scanning and Industry Analysis. So, environmental scanning, what are we talking about here? Basically, before managers can begin thinking about strategy or what strategy is best for the corporation, they have to understand the environment in which they're competing in. So, it's important for a company to realize that they can't design a strategy without a real good understanding of the external environment. Once management has a good handle on the environment, the impact and its impact in the business, then they'll be in a position to figure out their firm's competitive advantage. So, environmental scanning is basically an overreaching term that is going to talk about looking at everything, monitoring, evaluating, disseminating all the information that would be important for an organization to develop a strategy. So you use this as sort of part of your process of developing your strategic plans, and you want to basically understand what threats or opportunities are out there to improve the company's profitability. Okay, so the natural environment. So when we talk about the natural environment, we're talking about things that when you look outside your window, trees, the sunlight, wildlife, the climate, things that are related to the earth. And these factors, maybe they're in the environment, in the physical environment of one's life. Now, the natural environment is really going to be closely tied to the industry analysis. Some industries, like say Coca-Cola, is going to use a lot of water, so that's part of the natural environment, clean water. A lot of industries rely on water, especially farming. There are some industries that rely on good sunny weather. Some industries that rely on a consistent amount of rainfall. Industries that rely on energy and natural resources, oil, coal, wind, solar, things like that they have to monitor and keep track of. Could be companies that are making cement and they need sand, or companies making furniture or houses and they need wood. So these are all part of the natural environment that one has to be aware of. Now, the societal environment is sort of think about the social system you live in, and including keeping tabs on short-term activities of the organization, but things that are specifically going to influence longer-term decisions. And these factors can affect multiple industries, and we could talk about economic forces of the economy, technological forces of the change in technology, political legal forces, the change in government, laws and regulations, and social cultural forces, the change in values in society over time. Okay. Now, the task environment, and this is an important question, definition. And actually, there's a test question I want to show you here. And this is strategic managers scan the blank task environment to analyze relevant elements in the environment, and analysis takes the form of individual reports written by various people in different divisions of the firm. Okay, so that's a quiz question from Chapter 4, and you could see that I wanted to bring that up because a lot of the quiz questions tie directly into the presentation. It's one of the reasons to watch these video presentations and to look over the PowerPoints, because they help with a lot of the test questions. Now, like I was saying, the task environment includes elements or groups that directly affect the corporation, and in turn, the corporation is affected by. These groups could be such things as governments, labor unions, local communities, suppliers, competitors, customers, creditors, employees, trade organizations. These are all things that could be part of the task environment. So elements or groups that are going to affect the corporation, or the corporation is going to affect them. So that's a big concept. Now, industry analysis This is basically taking a really close look at all the factors that make up an industry. So the key factors that are going to be involved in the industry and therefore affect every company within the industry. Within the industry analysis, you want to look at the natural environment, the societal environment, the task environment. So if you sort of look at it, the natural environment's a big environment, and then societal environment are the people within who live in the natural environment, and the task environment is the smaller subsets of groups or people that directly affect the corporation. So sort of we go from very big environments to the task environment becomes the smallest. And the industry analysis is really looking at all three of these environments and how this specific industry is impacted by those different environmental factors. Something to help management to complete this analysis is called a STEEP analysis. And the STEEP analysis basically looks at, STEEP is an acronym for social, cultural, technology, economic, ecological, and political legal. So this analysis helps us to monitor trends both in societal and natural environments. And it's going to involve that acronym, and it's down here. S for subcultural, T technology, E economy or economic, ecological, and political legal forces. And these are some of the areas that are involved in the STEEP analysis. And so the social cultural, and we're going to go over this more too. And we're looking at lifestyle changes in how people live their life. Let me see, did we go over? Just want to see how much. We're going to go over this in a future slide, but career expectations. It used to be that people expected to have one career and work at a company most of their adult life, and that has changed. Consumer activism, how active people are involved in questioning the products they take and championing for safer and better quality control in their products. And the big area of this right now is GMOs. If you don't know what a GMO is, you're a bad millennial. You need to go on the internet, look up GMO, and figure this stuff out. All millennials need to be concerned about this. Growth and rate of change of the population, age distribution of the population, regional shifts in population, life expectancy, birth rates, pension plans, retirement, healthcare. These living wage, unionization, minimum wage for fast food workers is a big topic right now in society. So we need to know how society feels and how their changing perspective is going to affect your corporation. Now, technological, and this is looking at, governments and businesses spend a lot of money on research and development, and technology moves fast pretty quickly. So if you have a product that a new technology is going to put stress on, or disruptive technology is going to put out of business, that's something you should know. So if you're Kodak and you don't realize these digital cameras are going to destroy your film business, you're going to have a problem. If you're the music industry and you don't realize that charging $15 for a CD of one good song and 11 crappy songs is not going to be totally destroyed when MP3s are developed, a solution has to be developed for that. So the development of new technology has to be monitored and how it's going to affect the corporation. Economic, different changes in the Federal Reserve policies on interest rates, money supply, inflation rates, unemployment, government support for the economy, things that you get changes in global currency rates, changes in stock prices, things that are going to affect the economy will affect consumers' ability to consume, and that's something a corporation should be wary of. So ecological, which is environmental, new laws that are going to protect the environment, trade and cap on pollution and carbon, recycling. These are all things that companies need to be aware of their products. And you take a product like Poland Spring, over the years, they have worked to reduce the amount of plastic in their bottles by 24%, and significantly trying to think of ways to minimize the economic impacts. And then, of course, political, legal, and antitrust, global regulations, taxes, incentives, foreign trade, World Trade Organizations, laws on hiring and promoting and outsourcing. These are all things that, so there's a lot of stuff you can see here. The STEEP analysis covers a lot of areas and a lot of different things that it's very, you can understand how difficult and how much time it does take to create an effective strategy for a corporation, because there's so many factors to look at. Now, with the generations, if we go to another tab, the generations are changing. So as people get older, we have what's called the silent generation, which is the generation before World War II. I'm not sure why they call it the silent generation. You've got the baby boomers, which is one of the biggest generations, or probably the biggest generation ever. And this is, I guess, after World War II ended, everybody felt really happy and decided that they should have a lot of kids. So this baby boomer generation took off, and they are now getting ready to retire. So that has significant impact on you, because if they retire, that's going to open up a lot of jobs for Generation X and millennials. Generation X is a generation that is one of the smaller generations, and they're moving into more management roles right now. And of course, there's the millennial generation, which most of you are from the millennial generation, or the generation after, which I think they call Generation Y. And this group is the new group finishing up college and entering the workforce. And they're a rather large group as well. So as these different generations move through their life, their needs from corporations change. So if you're an older generation retiring, you may need more products with bigger labels, or more healthcare-related products and things of that nature, or even vacation-related products for retirement. Okay, so let's look at social, cultural trends. There's an increasing environmental awareness. This started to develop in the 70s and accelerated in the 80s and 90s and into today, where everybody is concerned about the environment, because we live on a small planet. Our carbon footprint is a new thing that we now worry about. How much carbon are we generated? How much plastic are we throwing away? How much resources are we utilizing? And a new push to live in a more minimal life, and a life where we're not wasting resources, and we're trying to move away from a disposable generation where we just throw things out and buy new things, to really considering our purchases as its impact on the economy. There's also a change in health consciousness. People are more aware of their health. They're more interested in vitamins and fitness and diet, exercise. So this opens up huge new industries in vitamins and gyms, physical fitness areas, fitness on videotapes, on TV, on YouTube, shows that talk about medical issues and alternative medicines, and all these things are because people are a little bit more conscious about their health, and they want to make sure that they're as healthy as possible. As the big baby boomer generation starts to retire, there's expanding senior markets, and the needs of seniors now have to be considered, because that's a big market, and the impact of millennials. Millennial generation has a different way of thinking about things. They grew up in an era of much faster change in technology, and they have certain needs, and they have certain desires for their lives, and they have certain expectations about work and how they fit into a corporation. So these are current trends. More current trends is the declining mass market. Nobody wants to be seen in the shirt everybody else is wearing, or people have a very more niche or smaller market interest. So with the advent of the internet and so many different websites and products and avenues, we all don't have to shop at Kmart anymore. We now have multiple avenues of different stores and outlets and interests where we could really uniquely identify ourselves with unique products and unique everything down from unique entertainment. YouTube is a good example of thousands and thousands of different channels and different programming. And even in TV today, one time TV was 5 channels and now it's over 100 channels. So there's really, the mass market's declining and the mini market is now taking hold. So for companies, that means making many different products to fit into as many different mini markets as possible. So it's no longer one bag of Oreos for the whole country. It's 26 different types of Oreos to meet all those niche flavors and markets. Okay. Change in pace and location of life. So people are moving at a faster pace these days. They're more connected, checking their emails, doing business remotely, virtual communications, and more living in more different locations and even traveling more. Change in household composition. We don't have what's called a nuclear family as much anymore, which is mom and dad and 2.5 kids. We now have a lot of single family households. We have same-sex parenting. We have single parenting, just all sorts of different things. And that has to be recognized. And companies have been making commercials specifically for same-sex couples, for single moms, single dads. I mean, all these people are being addressed because they're the new household. Okay. Increasing diversity in the workforce and markets. And, so diversity is being reflected in our entertainment and in our TV and comic books and movies and music. And in the workforce, it is no longer, any type of racial comments or jokes or discrimination is certainly no longer put up with in any way. And companies have to face, that their company has to make accommodations to be fairly diversified and hopefully representational of the actual demographics of the country they live in. Okay, so look at technological breakthroughs. There's a lot has happened in technology over the past 10 years. Big thing is the portable informational devices, cell phones, iPads, things of this nature that lets you be connected 24 hours a day. New electronic networking, Wi-Fi, wireless, WiMAX, cellular networks, keeping everything connected, alternative energy sources, breakthroughs in wind and solar, precision farming. We're now more computerization, automated farming equipment is coming into place to make farming more effective. Virtual personal assistants, utilizing the internet, genetically alternated organisms, specifically foods. These are GMOs, genetically modified organisms, is what they should say, not altered, but modified is the common terminology. And that's where, hey, let's put some spider genes into this apple. Let's put some pesticide genes into this corn. Let's modify this plant to grow faster. So if we're genetically messing around with the food, we don't know all the consequences it has to us, people eating them, when they genetically change, create a tomato that grows its own pesticide inside of it. That means you're eating the tomato with the pesticide already grown inside of it. How does it affect your body? These are things that, we have to look at. And more robots and drones. These are all things that, drones started making mini drones that could spy on you. They could fly up into your house and look through your window. A lot of things to think about for companies. Now, if we're talking about risk, companies face a lot of risks. One risk is the regulation or regulatory risk. What if the government decides to, change the laws about how you can do business and who you can sell your product to, how much carbon you can create, how much pollution, and different ways to dispose of waste, the amount of how much you have to pay people, how many people you have to hire, all these different regulations that could come into play that's going to affect your corporation. There is supply chain risk, getting the raw materials and the supplies you need for your company to do business. What if if there's a disruption in that supply chain? What if there's only one supplier and they have a strong amount of power over you? There's a lot of things that you have to worry about, If your product demands to have, 100 different raw materials, all from 30 different suppliers, any one of those raw materials are missing, your product stopped dead in its tracks. So supply chain is a big risk. Product and technology risk. What if someone makes a better product using more updated, more relevant, more innovative technology? That's a risk that's going to affect your business, like the Kodak cameras, like Blockbuster. All these companies have faced disruptive technology that certainly changes the need for their products dramatically. Litigation risk of being sued by other companies or other individuals. If your product hurt or damaged somebody or was destructive in any way, you could be sued. Reputational risk. This is the impact that affects the overall reputation of your company. So you don't want to be thought of a company that pollutes the planet. You don't want to think, you don't want any negative perceptions about your company polluting the planet or serving up toxic food that gets people sick, or food that's contaminated with E. coli. So your reputation about how well you treat your customers, how much quality is in your product, how careful your company is. These are all risks that a company would face. The physical risk. This is direct risk from climate change, physical effects of drought, food storms, flooding, high temperatures. These are all things of physical risks that can affect your company. Okay. So if we look at variables in international social, cultural, and environmental issues. So international, we have different customs and values in different countries, different languages, different demographics, different life expectancies, different religious beliefs, different human rights, different ideals of working conditions and pension and healthcare. Even slavery still exists in certain parts of the country. Not our country, but certain countries. Change in technologies, different technology protocols in different countries, different outlets at different countries. You go to Europe, you can't use your American plugs in the European outlets. I mean, that's just a difference in the environment of Europe compared to America. Different skill levels across the world, different patent protection, different laws, different accounting regulation. I wouldn't say regulations, but accounting protocols. Computer hacking, different access to clean water and energy, different economic policies, per capita income, inflation, monetary policies, economic activity in different countries, different wages, different regional organizations, different outlook on the environment and concern for the environment in different countries. And of course, different legal and political environments in different countries. So this is important if you're an international company, that you also have to scan and do a steep analysis for international environments as well as domestic. Here's a little chart on scanning the external environment. So, in this chart, we have analysis of, here's the steep analysis up here, and we want to look at that in the community, the market, and competitors. So the community is more social, of people that you're affecting. The market is the business market for your products, and competitors are the other companies that compete in the market. Your suppliers who supply you your materials, the government who is going to monitor and regulate your company, and other special interest groups that may have a problem or raise issues with your company. And if they're not addressed, they could make a source of really negative impact. And these are all the strategic forces, opportunities, and threats that operate in this internal environment. So this is a quick little flow chart to kind of recap those issues. Now, if we're talking about industry competition, we have things like potential entrants, new companies coming in, the threat of new entrants, new companies coming in to compete. So if you were Sony and Nintendo and Microsoft decided to make the Xbox, that's a big threat. Buyers, bargaining power of the people who buy your product. If the government's the one person that buys your product, they have a lot of control over you. If Walmart is 50% of your business and they tell you to lower your price, then you have a big problem there, because you could lose 50% of your business if you don't do what Walmart says, and that's why they have a huge amount of bargaining. Substitute products. The threat of a customers turning to a different product to solve their solution, their needs. The bargaining power of your suppliers. If you only have one supplier supplying a key element to your business, you're at their mercy. And stakeholders. People who are, we covered this in the previous chapter, people who are connected to your business. And it all makes a industry, to look at your industry competitors and the rivalry among your industry. So that's another little quick flow chart on looking at the industry forces. Now let's talk more about the threat of new entries. So if a new company wants to come into your industry and bring new capacity, new ideas to the market, that's a company you're going to have to share market share with. Now, entry barriers could be, things that make it really difficult to enter the market. So if you want to design a car, there's a lot of government regulation that has to be addressed before you can design and build and sell a car, as well as a lot of money to make factories and to get the skilled people and engineers and to do everything it takes to design a car from the bottom to the top. An extreme barrier to entry. Even in the video game market, to create a new video game console and get those video game consoles out to stores into people's homes takes a significant amount of development, software, hardware, research, and product design, and a lot of money, because many of those machines are sold at a loss, hoping to make money on the popularity of the software. And that's why many companies don't go into those businesses. So some businesses are so expensive to get involved in. That's a real big barrier, is the expense to get into the business, or the amount of red tape to establish the business. Okay, so barriers to entry, economies of scale. This is, you have to look at how big is the actual business or the economy. So in the production and sale of, say, computers, for example, Intel has a huge cost advantage because they have a big, what we call economy of scale, meaning that they have a huge base of sales to spread out their fixed costs. So if you're going to start up and you have a very small sales base, you don't have the same cost advantage as companies with large economies of scale. Product differentiation. So companies such as, like, say, Procter & Gamble, General Mills, which manufactures many different types of products, from soap to cereal to crackers to all different products, to ice cream, to frozen dinners, to dairy products, to cheese, to consumer goods and Q-tips and Vaseline, and so it creates a very high barrier to entry to have to advertise and maintain all these different product lines. Now, capital requirements. This is how much money does it cost to get into the business, to make the facilities and the factories and hire the people. That could be a huge barrier to entry. And so big companies need to make big products like refrigerators, airplanes, cars. Have huge barriers to entry to get involved, the amount of money to get involved in that business. Switching costs. How much does it cost to switch from one product to another? In some cases, it costs nothing. In some cases, it could cost quite a bit. For example, if you were a PC user and you want to switch to Apple or a Mac, a lot of the programs you'd have to buy again. You couldn't move from PC to PC is relatively easy to move. You just reinstall it. But for the Mac, you have to buy a whole new software. So that could be a switching cost. And the higher the switching cost, the less likely people are going to switch. Access to distribution channels. Smaller companies may have a difficult time getting their products on the shelf. So if you make a new soda, it's virtually impossible to get that new soda into many supermarkets and places where consumers can buy them, because the cost and the access to this distribution is very limited. It used to be that if you made your own, say, TV show or video, trying to get that distributed onto syndication or a major TV or cable network was next to impossible. But now with YouTube, it's much more easy to distribute any type of video products that you make. cost disadvantage due to size. So once a product is big enough in a particular, a standard for the product, that's a key advantage. So when you have most people adopted your software or are used to your particular product as a standard, then it's difficult for other companies to compete or move into that market space. So for a long time, the PC was the standard, and for businesses, and most everybody had a PC at work, so they bought a PC at home, and it was very difficult for anybody to have an alternative operating system or computer until people, I guess Apple's the only exception where their computers are so much better that it's worth it to switch to or move into. And of course, government policy could be a big barrier to entry. The government may limit the amount of licenses to operate, especially say for even like a bar, liquor license, or restaurants and different things of that nature. It may be really difficult for new companies to get into the business based on government regulations. Now, now the competition or rivalry among existing firms is also something to be looked at. So any competitor making a decision is going to affect the whole industry. And so if a competitor decides to lower prices, other competitors may also lower prices. Or if a competitor decides to move into a product space that typically they don't compete in and that you do compete in, then that may prompt you to lower prices or market more aggressively. So there could be a retaliation for any type of competitive move. So one competitor does something, other competitors feel threatened and could possibly create a price war and affect the profits for the whole industry. Now, things that affect the competition or rivalry among competitors is the number of competitors. The more competitors you have, the more competition there is. The growth in the rate of industry. A faster growth of industry, there's plenty to go around for most companies, and the rivalry isn't as strong. But as it slows down and they're really fighting for market share, competition heats up. The product or service characteristics. How similar are your product? If the more unique your product is, the higher profits or prices you can sell it for. But the more closer your product becomes as a commodity, the less it differentiates you from different competitors, and the more that competitors are going to compete head-to-head to try to sell more of that same commodity, something like gasoline or milk or cheese. The amount of fixed costs. So the higher fixed costs you have of a company, then the more aggressive you are going to want to cover those fixed costs. In some cases, you rather sell at a very small profit to cover all your fixed costs than not sell enough and take a loss on the amount that you have to, pay. It's sort of like, renting a house, but you also make sure that you sub-rent enough other rooms in the house to pay for the overall mortgage. Otherwise, you're losing your profits on your fixed costs. Capacity. So capacity is how much ability you have to manufacture or make your product. So if you have a lot of capacity, you want to keep your capacity running at a high level and producing as much as you can. So that can sometimes lead to extra competitive forces of lowering prices to try to gain market share or increase the amount you can sell to maintain your capacity. Barriers to exit. So this may keep companies from leaving the industry if there's a high amount of cost for leaving an industry, such as specialty assets that are made specifically for this industry that can't be resold anywhere else or repurposed, or commitments you have to other companies that if you stop producing, you have to pay them sort of a fee for not being able to service them any longer. And the diversity of the rivals. So the more similar you are, the more likely to compete with other companies. If you're more diversified and have different product paths that don't 100% overlap with other companies, you're going to compete less. Okay, let's talk of substitute products. So a substitute product. So say you're using a pencil, and now you decide instead of writing your letters or your notes, you use a computer. So that would be a word program on a computer. So that would be a substitute product. Switching a pencil for another pencil is not a substitute product. That's just another pencil. switching Pepsi for Coke is not a substitute product. Coke is not a substitute for Pepsi. But going from Coca-Cola to tap water, that is a substitute, or juice. So it's a product that solves the same problem. It's going from a Honda to a Toyota is not switching using substitute products. But going from a Honda to a bicycle is switching because of a substitute product. So the product is different, but satisfies the same need. So possible substitute products can be a real problem for companies. So when soda industry started seeing loss of sales due to substitute products, the soda industry decided to buy those other companies and be involved in those substitute products. So then we had soda companies buying Gatorade and orange juice and water companies to, sort of fill in the gaps of where they were losing their customers to. Okay, the bargaining power of suppliers. So, bargaining power of buyers. So if you have one group like a Walmart or a government who's the main buyer of your product, now you have a problem, because since they're making such large purchases from you, they can demand lower costs. They could put a significant amount of pressure on you to lower your sales price and to make considerations for them that you would consider seriously, otherwise losing your business and losing a majority of your business. And that's why if buyers get too powerful, it can put a stress on companies. So Walmart forces the prices down at their suppliers so they can keep low prices in their stores. And, that's why a lot of the products in Walmart have lower quality, because companies have been forced to do what they can to meet Walmart's demands of a lower price point, and in some cases it's lowering the quality to get there. Now bargaining, so a buyer or group of buyers is powerful if some of the following factors are true. The industry is dominated by a few companies, there's a unique product or service, substitutes are not available, there's little ability to forward integrate, and the unimportance of the product or service to the industry. All right. So if we look at, I also want to talk about, suppliers. There can be bargaining power for suppliers. So people who, it's the other side of the coin. So the buyers are the people buying from the suppliers. So if the supplier is sort of the only source the buyer can get your product from, now they have the advantage over the buyer. So it's sort of two sides of the same coin. All right. Stakeholders, governments, local communities, creditors, trade organizations, special interest groups, unions, and shareholders all have some power over the company. So unions can go on strike or demand higher wages. Trade organizations can demand membership fees and access to certain distribution. Creditors can demand higher interest rates or steeper controls on the management of the company. Local communities can demand, where and when you sell your product, same thing as governments. So these are all factors that the strategy has to look at. Now, if you look at the industry evolution, things have been changing over time. So most industries have many companies serving smaller and smaller markets. So in a fragmented industry, you have many companies supplying a smaller and smaller amount of market share. But in a consolidated industry, only a few companies dominate the product in its competition. So thinking like cable TV, you have Fios and Cablevision. So you usually only have a few companies that dominate the local area. Okay, you have multi-domestic industries, which are specific to a country or group of countries. You have global industries that operate in the whole world, and regional industries that primarily coordinate the activities within a region, which could be a subset of a country or a subset of some countries. So multi-domestic would be a smaller side of international or business, and then global would be the largest side, and it'd be sort of everybody can fit somewhere in between. Now, a strategic group is business units of different firms that pursue a similar strategic interest and have similar resources. So here would be a mapping of a strategic chart. And here we could see that if we're looking at two factors, price here and the product line, the breadth of the product, like meaning the size of the menu, we can see that we have a bunch of companies here that have a low price and a small menu, and a few companies over here that have a big menu and a medium price, or over here we have a high price and a moderate or a middle-sized menu. So we could kind of put these names down and where we feel they fall in the map, and then draw circles around them to group their strategic position. And that would be how you'd make a mapping of a strategic groups. Different types of different strategic types are defenders, who focus on improving efficiency, who focus on, trying to protect their market share by making a better product. They're prospectors, who focus on making a better product, more innovative product, looking for new market opportunities, disruptive technologies. That's a good strategy. Another strategy could be the analyzers, who focus on at least 2 different products or market areas, who really analyze and like a laser sharp focus to meet the needs of just a couple of markets. There are the reactors, who basically they are reacting to everybody else's strategy and everybody else's success. So this is sort of like they come out from behind and see what works and copies it and moves forward. They're not necessarily a pioneer or a prospector. Now, hyper competition is when something like in the phone industry, where you have a very short design product life cycle, where new phones are coming out every year and new features, and the phones from 2 years ago look like might as well have been made 20 years ago, because there's short product designs and cycles and new technologies, and that's why Apple's trying to push out new products every year, and Samsung. So there could be new companies that jump into the market, and unexpected outsiders that come in with new phones, or old incumbents like BlackBerry trying to come in and redefine themselves and make a tactical redefinition of their cell phone and trying to move back into the market. So this is just a very hyper-competitive, very fast-changing type of competition that makes even more stress, where managers could make a strategic plans for 1 to 3 years. Now their strategic plans may be 1 to 3 months due to how fast of the hyper-competition. Using key success factors, these are variables that can be significantly affect the competitive position of companies within a particular industry. So when we look at, each industry has a different set of, key success factors. And so, you would want to know, based on that particular industry, what those success factors would be. But you could use these success factors to lay out what's called an industry matrix. So once you define what are the success factors of the industry, then you could lay out sort of in a matrix and sort of weigh the company's success in each of these strategic factors. So it's really just a sort of like putting pen to paper, creating a matrix of everything that affects the key strategic points that affect the business, and then rating the business and how well they succeed in each of these factors. Competitive intelligence is gathering information about other companies' products, programs, future products, how customers feel about other companies. It's business intelligence. It's basically not necessarily spying in a legal sense, but spying in a legal sense. So you can't do anything illegal, but legally you can look at the other company, go to stores, look at the other company's products, sometimes even visit the other company's factories, talk to consumers, how they feel about other companies, buy other companies' products and dissect them and see what makes them tick. Just get a better idea of what you're up against. Now, where can you get this competitive intelligence? Well, there are information brokers that collect and make reports on it. There's, of course, the internet has a lot of this detail, a lot of it put up by the company's own webpage. There's industry espionage, where that can sometimes become a little questionable or legal or gray area. And there's investigation services, people who will, sort of like private investigators, who will go and actually collect a lot of this information and put it together for you. Okay, Useful forecasting techniques. So forecasting is a real big part of being a successful strategy. And you want to, you need to come together as a group in your strategic group and come up with the best way to look at what's likely to happen in your industry and figure out where the industry is moving. So there are many different statistical models or predictive forecasting techniques you could use, and basically you want to use the experience and the brain power of your key managers and directors in association with experts' opinions and buying industry information and looking at statistical models and coming up with the best way to predict the future of where the business and where the customers are going to be. So many companies have, fairly different strategies on this. Sometimes some companies rely on a pioneering mind, one, like a Steve Jobs, who really just kind of knows what's going to happen or what people want before they even want it. And some companies have a more systematic approach where many people are involved and inside and outside the company to try to get these forecasts done. So if we're going to look at the external factors, we can kind of list them into opportunities and threats. So changes in demographics and economic possibilities are stuff that we could look at as opportunities to expand or grow. And threats could be threats from different governments or companies or different products who can sort of be something that we're worried about. And we could put a rating on these and a weight and create a score and sort of come up with a what we call an EFAS table. Looking at these in a more systematic approach. And this is, not a lot of companies do this. This is just an example of, what they call, looking at the external factors and trying to come up with some sort of methodology for measuring them and rating them. But the basis of, just to review, the basis of this chapter is for companies to make a good strategic plan, they really have to understand the external forces of the environment, the government, the industry, their competitors, to really come up with a good strategy moving forward. So you need to know yourself and know your environment as a corporation before you can make an effective strategy to move forward. And that's the basis of this chapter. Okay, so that's the end of this chapter. I look forward to talking to you soon on Chapter 5. Thank you and take care.